We know that stress is the number one risk factor for negative birth outcomes. We know that. Study after study shows it. And what is it like to live in the US as a Black woman? And then add all of these issues around systemic racism and am I going to get the right care that I need on top of all the other very real reasons to be anxious when we're pregnant. There's a lot of stress, right? And what is the one thing that has been studied more than anything else about yoga is
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Today we have an immense pleasure of introducing a true pioneer in the world of prenatal and postnatal wellness. We're joined by Jessica Jennings, the visionary founder of MaYoga. Her mission was to create accessible yoga, education, and community for pregnant mamas and new moms right in their local areas. Before the pandemic, MaYoga had an already built 10 thriving local circles. Wow, that's awesome. Impacting over 16,000 mothers who found strength, relief from aches and pains, and vital preparation for birth and postpartum. So, Jessica, thank you so much for joining us today, especially as we observe Black Maternal Mental Health Week to discuss how women can stay active, strong, and supported through their pregnancy and postpartum journey.
Well, thank you, Brittany, for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to chat with your amazing audience of mamas.
Of course. So I always do this with the guests, and all the guests kind of just look at me like, oh, goodness. So I always start with, out of all the accolades, who is Jessica?
So the first thing that pops into my mind is that I'm a mom. She's 18 now, but when she was first born, I had been teaching yoga and even 6 years of prenatal yoga. And I figured I would be pretty prepared. I had a lot of knowledge. And yet, after an emergency C-section and just the usual exhaustion, depletion, I always say, like, they are literally like sucking the prana out of our bodies, the life force out of our bodies when they nurse, right? And then on top of having only 3 hours of sleep in a row, and realizing that I just hadn't quite learned how to take care of myself. Oddly, like I could stop at Whole Foods and get some prepared food, but did I know how to run into the kitchen and get something really healthy that was delicious? I could go to a yoga class, but did I really know what to do when I got myself to my own mat to realign and to support the process of healing? No. So I loved her, and luckily I did not have postpartum depression, but I did feel like I needed a lot of help. And I went back and I studied Ayurveda, which is off the mat self-care, and I combined it with the yoga that I loved, that had helped me so much enjoy my pregnancy and stay out of pain and even get through the challenges of labor. And I created MaYoga.
All of that just just to create this amazing organization to help other women going through similar experiences to what you went through.
If I'm going to be super honest, like I loved my baby so much that I almost felt like it was like unhealthy. And I was like, you know what? I need to have something else, or so much of my focus will go to her. And like, so in the, what I call the in-between moments, I was kind of setting up the website and preparing. And our original idea was we were just going to have a prenatal yoga studio here in Los Angeles. And I gathered some teachers I had taught with, and we found this loft space. And this woman had birth classes there and stuff like that. So she was excited to partner with us. And then a couple months later, she's like, you guys got to go, because she didn't realize it's a loft space. She can't be at her desk working when we're doing yoga because it's like too distracting. And so all of a sudden we didn't have a space. And that's when the yoga kicked in, because instead of kind of falling apart, I came home and I sat on my meditation cushion and I was like, okay, universe, I know that there's going to be some kind of gift here. Could you just give it to me now? and I got this sense of like, oh my God, I know what I want to do. We're going to go guerrilla, and each of us is going to find our own, space in our own neighborhood. Maybe it's a toddler music place or a place that is a boutique for, breastfeeding or whatever. And we would offer our classes there in the evening. So it worked out really well. I oversaw the website and the community, and we grew to 10, and we saw, I think, over 18,000 mamas in that time until, unfortunately, quarantine closed everything up.
Yeah, COVID closed a lot of things up, honestly.
Yes.
And I can imagine it, and especially in the because I'm a group fitness instructor,
Hmm.
how I can't think of another word other than sad it was that you didn't have that one-on-one connection with other participants and just kind of just ooh.
Yeah, it was sad, and everybody, I mean, it's already so isolating and stressful to be pregnant. And then on top of that, you're like, oh my God, I don't know what this new disease is. And can I even go outside? And so we actually moved online within 24 hours. We had a full spectrum of classes fully online. And the idea was, hey, well, we'll go to, if they can't come to us, we'll go to them. And it became kind of a global experience. I mean, we have people dropping in from all over the place, and there's Zoom sessions. Our teachers are pretty expert, so they can customize whether it's a pregnant person, a mom, or all of our classes are even open to partners and anyone because it's really based in this idea of alignment, right? And this is something we sort of get maybe unconsciously in a lot of yoga classes, but in ours, we're sort of helping people just have the tools that we need to make these subtle shifts in, if we're pregnant, where to make space for baby in the body and
Mm.
how to root into your core safely and effectively, and those sorts of things that I didn't quite really know, as a new mom.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of us as I'm doing research are not very educated on our bodies through pregnancy.
Yeah,
So, prenatal yoga is an amazing way to get enacted and tied into our bodies, honestly.
it
Which
really
actually
is.
which
Yeah.
actually leads us to our next question. Um for which my researcher helped me find this. You have a background as a wellness educator and an OBGYN. What were some of the key insights you gained from that experience that helped you shape Ma Yoga?
Well, I want to just correct you. I am not an OBGYN, so I'm not a doctor at all. I do have my master's in kinesiology. And
Ooh.
but yeah, so what kind of do I bring from Western science maybe
Mhm.
into, yeah, yeah. Well, I love the combination. And in fact, at the end of my master's, I was required to do a clinical study. And I really wanted to focus on prenatal exercise. But I didn't know how to go about it. And then I got this random call from the chief of staff of OBGYN at Kaiser Permanente Hospital. And she had just taken her first yoga class, and she saw my brochure for like corporate yoga or something. I was like this new yoga teacher when I dropped it off. And she's like, I don't know if you've ever taught prenatal yoga, but I want to do a study. And I was like, that's so funny because I have to do a study. And, it was just one of the many weird coincidences in my life where I feel like we have all experienced that, right? When you're really following what I call your inner GPS, it's like the universe just seems to like rise up in support. So for 6 years, I worked at Kaiser, and we created a group visit and prenatal yoga program. So instead of going one-on-one to your OBGYN for, wait an hour and a half and then you get 15 minutes, people came in a group. We supported each other. We had a different yoga theme each time to talk about. And then meanwhile, people were going off into the corner with the OB or midwife just to do an ultrasound and check in. And then the practitioner would join us for like an hour-long conversation, which was amazing. And everybody learned so much from each other. And we would have visiting speakers too. And then we would do prenatal yoga. So we did a study, and we found, of course, the satisfaction was really high. And unfortunately, when I presented it to all the people in suits, they were very thankful and appreciative and said, "Thanks very much. We're gonna do this." And off I went to start my own thing, which was MaYoga. So that was also happening at the same time. But what I found was, luckily, that everything that I was already teaching fits so well with what we know in medical science. So my perspective is it's informed by a tradition of yoga called tantric yoga. And if you Google tantric yoga, you will not get what what it really is. So don't. But the idea when it started, and it was the latest form of yoga, the latest conversation, right, about happiness, which is what kind of yoga is basically that we are all made of the same stuff. In fact, everything is made of this consciousness, right? Or whatever you want to call it, nature or energy or God. And so when I first started teaching prenatal yoga as a new teacher, it didn't make sense to me to think, well, certain kinds of births are good and certain kinds are bad. Or like, you really want to do it this way and not this way. That it just didn't make sense. And like, I'm an example of someone who was really lucky that they could intervene and I could get the cesarean that was needed, right? So what it's really more about is what I call educate and meditate, right? So you want the outside knowledge, and we always encourage people to take birth classes and get the pros and cons of all the choices that you might not even know that you're making, right? But by default, you're making some choices. I mean, unless you're like giving birth in the Black Sea with a bunch of dolphins, you're like in the hospital and things are happening, right? So you get the pros and cons, and you make sure you have support, like a team that really supports you. And we kind of walk people through what that process is like, even talking to doulas and stuff. And then you practice connecting in, right? And a lot of people don't like the idea of meditation, but you can even think of it as just sitting quietly and listening, right? This idea of turning inward without judgment, without trying to fix yourself or critique yourself, but really the way that we would turn toward a little one that we love, right? And this is really the meaning of the syllable ma, right, that I chose for the name MaYoga. It's like in every single language, it means mother, right? And it's just amazing. If you Google the list, it's crazy. But also in the language of yoga, it also means the highest, most powerful, and wise. And what I witnessed in the people who were doing the prenatal yoga was that when they did choose to slow down and turn inward lovingly, they began to connect to their power and wisdom, right? And by the end, they were like ready. And so for me, it's not about like, oh, you should do it naturally or without intervention. It's more, here are the tools to figure out what are the best choices for you and your family.
I love that. That's awesome. And all of that just from dropping off a brochure.
Right. Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Which again, you said your internal GPS leads you in some crazy ways. But for someone, and I can acknowledge because I am new to yoga. So someone who is completely new to yoga, why is prenatal yoga maybe a great place to start during pregnancy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say, scientifically, there's just studies abound, right? And so we know that it reduces aches and pains. We know that it, of course, reduces anxiety and stress. We know that it reduces length of labor. And we know that it improves, self-reported self-efficacy in labor. In other words, just people feel more empowered. That's my language for it. But on a just and let me just say, and it's we have a crisis right now in the U.S. in terms of maternal health. We know that almost half of women report that their births were traumatic. We know that 1 in 7 women experience depression sometime in the 18 months around birth. So we call it postpartum depression, but in fact, more often than not, it starts during pregnancy. Um, and we know that Black women are 27% more likely to experience severe pregnancy complications, and that includes death. And this is, really serious. We know that Black and Native American women are 2 to 3 times more likely to die. during childbirth or from pregnancy-related causes. Now, the thing that really, how to say, pisses me off is is when people say we don't know why, and if you look at the research, they're like, I don't know, they do look at, economic bracket
Mhm.
and they look at, access to healthcare, and then they take that out and they're like, that's not really the main cause. This feeds into it, yes. But what I would say is we do know. I think we know. And this is what we know. We know that stress is the number one risk factor for negative birth outcomes. We know that. Study after study shows it. And what is it like to live in the US as a Black woman? And then add all of these issues around systemic racism and am I going to get the right care that I need on top of all the other very real reasons to be anxious when we're pregnant? There's a lot of stress, right? And what is the one thing that has been studied more than anything else about yoga is stress. It reduces stress, right? And
Mm.
so for me, I would say that is the number one reason I think every pregnant mama should do yoga, and preferably prenatal yoga, which it's not that you're going to hurt yourself in a regular yoga class, but it just gives you so many ways to adjust for your growing baby and body. It gives you moments to connect to baby and just to enjoy this really exciting time. It gives you a chance to connect to other mamas. In our Kaiser study, we asked people what was your number one favorite thing about the prenatal yoga, and we had a big group saying that it helped them physically out of pain, and staying strong. We had an even bigger group saying that it helped them feel really calm. And one woman I always remember, she said, it makes my husband always is happy when I've done it because I'm just easier to be around. Um, but the biggest group of all said that it was being with the other pregnant mamas that they created this feeling of you have your people, you have your girls, and like people care when you show up and they're interested when you're a mom and the color of your baby's poop, and it really changes the whole journey. So hopefully that gives you some
Oh,
reasons.
no. That's awesome. That incentivizes me, honestly. And you kind of touched on it in a way that yoga serves as a therapeutic tool for women who may experience previous birth traumas or emotional challenges related to pregnancy, and how
Yeah.
important being a part of a community and how important exercise and yoga and prenatal yoga is. Because again, you can connect with other people that you may not realize. Oh, I did not realize the poop was supposed to look like that. I did not realize that was supposed to be a thing. I do have a little bit of a controversial question, just a little
Ooh,
bit. And maybe
yes.
it's tied into your research a bit. Given your background, should prenatal and postpartum exercise be covered more comprehensively by health insurance, given its impact based on our conversation on mental and physical well-being?
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, it should. I actually turned this part of my offerings. We also do online teacher trainings into a nonprofit, and we are in at this very moment talking to insurance companies as potential partners. The problem that I see in the industry is that they're not as interested in preventing problems as they are in, throwing some medication at you when you have the problem, or procedure. So, for example, um, I there's a lot of urban myths, right, around pregnancy and exercise. And it wasn't until 2002 that the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology said it's okay, and in fact recommended for pregnant women to exercise 30 minutes a day. And
Mhm.
if you think about it, that wasn't that long ago, right? So up until that point, what was it? Maybe just rest, dear, right?
Bed rest. It was mostly
Bed
my
rest.
my mom, when she was pregnant with me, because I was a high risk, she was on bed rest like the last half of her pregnancy with me.
Yeah. And there's a lot of fear. I've heard, reaching to the top cabinet there's fear even for people who do yoga. Some people just stop altogether because they say, I'm afraid that, I'm going to stretch too much or whatever. So, yeah, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of confusion. And when I was pregnant, somebody told me that I should never engage my core. Now, this is someone who she had like tight abs. She was a yoga teacher, that kind of body that she also did Pilates and she had a hard time during labor because her abs were so tight that it was hard for them to expand. However, I do not have her body. I have a completely different body, a very soft. I probably teach prenatal yoga because I always feel a little bit pregnant. Very open and unstable. And so it would have been incredibly helpful for me to learn how to engage my core very safely and keep the space for baby, right? And so because I literally did not use my core the whole time. And then I had her and I was healing from a cesarean. And then I actually had a couple miscarriages. And so it was like I was kind of pregnant a lot of that time. It was a long time that my body was destabilized. And because of that, there was a pattern that my body went into, which basically turned my pelvis, my pelvic floor. It took years to heal from that. A lot of work and a lot of research but it was quite a journey, and I've learned a ton about the bodies from that experience. But the point is that there's a lot that we can prevent by simply learning really basic alignment principles. And in MaYoga, which is alignment based, and I have to say that you'll probably always get something out of any prenatal yoga class, but I am biased toward a kind of yoga that I call alignment based, which means it's not really about doing the pose. It's not about becoming flexible or strong, but all of those happen. The point is really, what are we doing inside the pose? And if you think about it, even right now, you're in a pose, whatever pose it is. It might not be in the Light on Yoga book, but it's a pose, right? And so we have this opportunity to align with our highest possibilities, right? That power and that wisdom within us. So MaYoga is rooted in the 5 elements. And so basically we start with space, right? Just breathing, softening the back of the body, settling the pelvis, right? Being open and receptive to being supported. And as we, when we're stressed, the groins can tighten. And it's almost like we're lifting ourselves up out of gravity. Like, I got to do this by myself. But this principle is about just realizing you don't have to micromanage this. Like, your body has an intelligence that in every cell, and there's bigger forces at work. And that can be a nice feeling. The next one is earth, about creating stability, right? So you kind of learn these things in class and they start to kick in because it feels so good and it becomes more and more of your norm, right?
Ooh, you said a word.
Thank you.
You have so much experience and background and kind of dives into the next question on addressing certain postpartum concerns like the diastasis recti and the core rehab and postpartum yoga. How do you do that without instilling fear or excessive focus on a perceived flaw? Because probably a lot of women or parents come in with oh, my belly hangs over this. I don't look that same way. How do you kind of incorporate that a little bit into your
Yeah,
practices?
that's a great question. Diastasis recti. Yeah, it's hard. It's so the abdominal wall splits in the middle, and that's natural. And most of us can stick like a finger in between that fascial, the tissue connector. After pregnancy, most of us can stick a couple fingers in, right? Even 3 fingers is kind of normal. But once you get 4, 5, and 6, this is what's called diastasis recti, where it's really split open, and it's harder to bring it back together. Sometimes we have to have a procedure that sews it back up because our organs are literally falling out, and we can look really pregnant like a year later. So And yeah, the sooner I get people in class, the more I can give them the simplest tip, and I'll give it to you guys now, that will really help prevent it. And then we can talk about healing it because it's absolutely healable. But so when you think about it, the baby growing starts to put pressure on the front of the abdominal wall.
Hmm.
And and if you also think about us energetically kind of moving through our day and going through our task list, there's this kind of push forward that we do. And so it's natural to actually increase that risk of it expanding during pregnancy. So, what we talk about in that first principle of space is making space in the back of the body. Another way to say it is cradle baby in the back of your body. So if you're sitting and you in a chair right now and you have like there's a back of your seat, on your exhale, just lean back and see if you can expand your ribs toward the back of your chair. Of course, your sit bones have to also be touching the chair
Yeah.
in order to really feel that. Otherwise, you're just leaning back. But the idea is that with each breath, we have this opportunity to make space for baby. Excuse me.
Mm.
and and also to take the pressure away from the abdominal wall and the transversus abdominis, our deepest core muscles, are activated in the back of the body. So these alignment principles work for every person all across the board, but they're just especially important for pregnant mamas. And so when if you think of your rib cage like a bell, you want to ring it a little toward the back, right? And then when you do that, you can feel how there's less pressure forward. So cut to you've had a baby, and there's a test you can do. You can probably look it up on YouTube where you lie down, knees bent, and put two fingers in, lift your
Mhm.
head. And you can see if it's more than three or whatever. You don't want to do this test too often because honestly, if you're trying to get something to close up and you're sticking your fingers between it, it's not ideal. But every few months, you can check it out. If it is beyond four, you probably want to talk to your doctor. And then there are really simple and safe ways that we can address kind of weaving the abdominal wall back together. We're not going to jump into bicycles. We're not even going to do a full plank. It's really about how far can I go into this pose and maintain the space in the back body. So notice I'm not saying and keep my belly sucked in because sucking in, of course, reduces the space. We are going to feel a tone in the belly on the exhale, but it's kind of more spacious and even a deeper power when you exhale. Gently draw your low belly in and expand the back of the body. And then we root down. So it is something that we keep in mind when someone comes in and lets us know that they have this, even for every mom. And this goes for prenatal yoga and postpartum yoga. A regular yoga class might encourage us to go to really push our boundaries, right? Like if you've never done handstand in the middle of the room, let's try kicking up and see what happens. In a prenatal class, even a postpartum class, it's there's a different focus. It's really about nurturing ourselves, right? It's about paying attention to exactly what our body needs in this moment, being able to hear that and learn to translate your body's language and align in the way that it's asking for. And so we'll start with like the lowest common denominator of a pose that maybe it's just all fours. And then we'll invite someone to stretch one leg back, and then when we've helped them find the back body and their core, we'll invite them to take the other leg back so they're in the top of a push-up, right? Plank pose, but just for a breath, bring the knees down, see how that was. You know what I mean? So it's an exploration of what our body is okay doing as long as we are in alignment.
Mm. I love how you say in alignment. I don't know what it is, how you say it, but I just love it. I love our second to last question. You mentioned that you do sessions with like parents and couples and all the other things. You can imagine probably some other parents, the other side of the trio of the doubles, like, why am I taking the yoga class with you? I don't understand. If somebody is listening to this and their partner asks, can you come and do a class with me? What would be some advice you would give them to encourage them to want to come along?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a great question because, our partners, they usually want to help, and especially during labor, sometimes they feel helpless. So this is another reason why we encourage people to talk to a doula. Doulas are trained to help the partners help us, and for a lot of times, like. If a partner is kind of like, I don't want anyone else around. I got this, right? Sometimes when you meet with a doula, they explain that like you can go get a sandwich and she'll be in good hands, and suddenly they're like, oh no, actually this might be good. So that's as far as doulaing. But as far as coming to a class, I think that yoga is a funny thing. I have tried to convince family members and friends, and I would say it's hard. It's hard. It's in the yoga that I was trained in called Anusara. They used to talk about it as grace, as just this moment of like, I want to do yoga. Like, and it's not because you saw a flyer, but maybe it did remind you that you had that thought, but you're drawn to go deeper within. You're drawn to connect to something within yourself. And so I guess I would put it out there that if your partner doesn't want to do it with you, it's okay. They're just not, it's just, it hasn't hit them, right? They haven't needed it. But what you could try for sure is to say, hey, I know you want to help me, and I know you want to be there for me in labor and stuff. This is a way that we can really be connected on the deepest level. And you're going to learn some things that we can do, even partner poses that we can do together, hands on stuff that feels really good for both of us. And it would just mean a lot to me. And, give it a go.
Oh, I love that. Respect them where they're at, but still kind of just like, okay, I respect it, but still.
Yeah, yeah. It's the same thing. I mean, my daughter's 18 and like, will she do yoga with me? No. But what I've always believed is that for kids, they get it like through the back door. They see you doing it. They understand why you do it. Mommy hasn't done yoga in a few days. Mommy, you need yoga, right? I taught at her preschool and she assisted me so she could do it anytime. And in fact, once she said, I'm sure I'll do yoga when I'm grown up. Like, why wouldn't I? So I think recognize that if you're doing it, that's a huge deal.
Mm, I love that. It ties it back all, it's like a full circle moment,
Yeah.
honestly. It's awesome, honestly. And we made it to the last question. Woo! If, which you kind of did, but just kind of the question itself, if you could distill the essence of Ma Yoga's philosophy into one core message for all pregnant and postpartum women, what would it be?
Mhm. Well, I think, yeah, it would be all in the syllable ma. It's this idea that, and we don't have to be pregnant to do it, when we slow down, when we turn inward with love, and when we listen, um, when we open up to receive, both from inside and also the support that's always out there, we really start to step into this highest and most powerful and wise Ma self.
Mm, I love that. You don't have to be pregnant to step into yourself. Just stepping into yourself is just empowering, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're all pregnant with something, right? Some idea, some kind of something we're excited about, a vision, a project. And it's like these principles are exactly the same, which is why my yoga isn't just for pregnancy. It's super useful for pregnancy, but it's really about making space and a strong container for what's wanting to be born through us.
Mm, yes, born through us. I love that. Well, Miss Jessica, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come sit with me for the podcast to talk about Black Maternal Mental Health Week and talk about prenatal yoga and Ma yoga. And that brings a close to our another incredible, insightful, and empowering episode. A massive thank you to our truly visionary, you are a visionary, giving your flowers right now, guest Jessica Jennings. Your dedication to supporting mothers through movement, community, and education is nothing short of inspiring. And honestly, you've given me and the listening audience a lot to think about regarding of staying active, preparing for ourselves, and nourishing ourselves just in general, whether we're pregnant or not,
Well,
honestly.
thank you so much, Brittany. Oh my God, you are just such a wonderful person to talk to, so open and
Of course.
yeah.
And where can the people, I'm going to put it in the description. Where can the people find
Ah,
you? I know you have a YouTube channel. Where
mhm.
can the people look and find you?
I make myself available, and all of our teachers are available for a free week of classes for anyone pregnancy, postpartum, grandmas, grandpas. Just go to mayoga.com, M as in Mary, A as in Apple, and you can sign up for a free trial membership. I know people aren't thrilled these days with paying for monthly membership, so you can also just purchase a class if you want instead of the free week. And you can also do 2 months, but that gives you, we have a full week of Zoom classes. We chat with you. It's not like cute, it's like 2 or 3 people. And you get a customized class just for right where you are and what you need. And there's also an app, MaYoga Anytime. You can download it and you get 5 classes on there for free. But as a member, you get over 500 and you can filter by whatever it is you're going through, and also by duration.
Ooh, 500 classes. Oh my goodness. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Again, giving Jessica her flowers. Again, you from speaking with you, you've put a lot of work and effort into being here today, and I'm very appreciative. Again, you took the time out to come and speak with us over here at the PVF Tribe. I'm really appreciative.
It's been such a joy. Thank you.
Of course. If anything we discussed today resonated with you, or if you're looking for support in your pregnancy or postpartum journey, be sure to connect with Jessica and My Yoga. If you found today's episode valuable, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. Don't forget to leave a comment or review and hitting the 5-star rating. It helps us reach more amazing listeners and continue these crucial conversations. And to our wonderful audience, thank you for the continued support and for learning and leaning into these important topics. Until next time, remember to move with intention, listen to your body, and always prioritize your well being.